The Nigerian military publicly declared the death of ISIS West Africa's commander, a man known as Al-Minuki, in 2024. Then, in February 2026, the Nigerian military announced his death again on a Friday, days before the Trump administration made the same announcement to the entire world. Two declarations, one man, one country that announced it twice before Washington said a word. The question nobody in mainstream Nigerian media is asking is this: if Nigeria's military killed or confirmed Al-Minuki's death in 2024, why did it take until February 2026 to say it again? What happened in between, and who decided when the world would be told? And why did Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, the man who has publicly negotiated with armed groups the government calls terrorists, choose this killing to speak about? Stay with me, because the answer touches Aso Rock, the 2027 election calendar, and a strategic communication decision that was made far above the rank of any general. Before we go any further, if you're new here, Niger Insider Report exists for one reason: to bring you the political stories that mainstream Nigerian media buries, waters down, or simply won't touch. Hit subscribe right now and stay with me, because what I'm about to show you in the next 30 minutes changes how you see everything that is happening in this country. What exactly happened and when? The Nigerian military's Theater Command of Operation Hadin Kai made a public statement regarding the neutralization of Al-Minuki, identified as a senior commander within the ISIS West Africa province, also known as ISWAP, operating across the Lake Chad Basin and the Northeast. A prior declaration of his death or operational neutralization was made in 2024, though it received limited international verification and was not amplified by Western intelligence agencies at that time. In February 2026, the Nigerian military issued a fresh, formal announcement timed on a Friday, confirming Al-Minuki's death. Within days, the Trump administration issued its own statement citing the elimination of an ISIS West Africa leader, consistent with Nigeria's claim. Nigeria did not announce this as a joint operation. Washington did not credit Nigeria's forces as the primary actor. Two announcements, parallel timelines, no joint press conference. Why now? What is the timing strategy? The Tinubu administration is in the political runway to 2027. Counter-terrorism victories are among the few areas of federal policy where there is bipartisan public approval. They transcend ethnicity, religion, and party. February 2026 is also the period in which the National Assembly is debating the 2026 budget, which includes significant security sector allocations. A high-profile kill announcement creates political cover for those budget lines. The Friday timing of the Nigerian announcement is not accidental. Friday is the most significant communication day in northern Nigeria's news cycle. It is when mosque congregations gather, when local political messaging travels fastest through Islamic community networks. Nigeria has a documented pattern of premature or re-announced military victories. The Boko Haram is technically defeated statement of 2015 by then-President Buhari is the most cited example, followed by years of sustained attacks. When a military victory is announced twice, the first question is not "did it happen?" It is "why was the first announcement not enough?" Most people watching this assume the real story is that Nigeria killed an ISIS commander. But here is what nobody is telling you yet, and it starts with the fact that the United States did not name Nigeria's military in its own announcement. In international counter-terrorism, credit is currency, and someone decided Nigeria would not be paid in full. That decision was made in Washington or in Abuja, and the answer to which one changes everything. Which institutions are involved? Nigerian Army or Operation Hadin Kai Theater Command, the operational body with jurisdiction over the Northeast and Lake Chad Basin, responsible for the announcement. Office of the National Security Advisor, ONSA, undercurrent NSA Nuhu Ribadu, who coordinates intelligence sharing with foreign partners, including the United States Africa Command, AFRICOM. The presidency, or Aso Rock. No statement has reportedly been issued directly from the president's office on this killing, which itself is a strategic choice. The military announces, the president remains above the fray, preserving deniability and flexibility. The United States Africa Command, AFRICOM, the American military body whose operational theater includes the Lake Chad Basin, AFRICOM has a formal, if often opaque, intelligence-sharing relationship with Nigeria's military. Any confirmed kill of an ISIS-grade commander would ordinarily pass through joint verification. Sheikh Ahmad Gumi, he holds no official government position, but functions as a quasi-Track 2 diplomatic channel between the federal government and armed groups in the northwest and northeast. His reaction to this killing is institutionally significant because it signals how the event is being interpreted inside the religious political network he operates within. What Nigerian law and constitutional framework actually says. Section 217 of the 1999 Constitution, as amended, empowers the Nigerian Armed Forces to suppress insurrection and act in aid of civil authorities. Counterterrorism operations fall under this provision in practice, though the legal architecture governing joint operations with foreign militaries, including rules of engagement, intelligence sharing, and attribution, is governed largely by bilateral executive agreements, not by statute. That ambiguity is deliberate. Nigeria's Terrorism Prevention Act and its 2013 amendment criminalize membership of terrorist organizations and prescribe specific protocols for announcing the neutralization of designated actors. The law does not specify a timeline between an operational event and its public declaration, meaning there is no legal violation in announcing a 2024 event in 2026. But there is a political and accountability question that the law does not answer. Where the law creates ambiguity and who benefits. The gap between when a killing occurs operationally and when it is publicly announced is unregulated. This gives the presidency and the NSA complete discretion over the timing of military victory announcements, a power that is in practice a political instrument. The actor who benefits from unregulated announcement timing is whoever controls the strategic communication calendar, and in Nigeria's current architecture, that is the office of the National Security Advisor, not the military itself. In 2016, the military announced the capture of Abubakar Shekau, which proved inaccurate. In 2021, Shekau died by suicide after being cornered by ISWAP forces, and the Nigerian military issued a confirmation after the fact. The pattern of delayed, contested, or duplicated announcements around terrorist leadership is not new. It is a structural feature of how counterterrorism is communicated in Nigeria. Hold that thought, because in a few minutes I will show you exactly who has been positioned to benefit from this legal gray area around announcement timing. And the answer will surprise you, because it is not who is standing in front of the cameras. And once you understand who controls the communication calendar, the next question is who controls what Sheikh Gumi says, when he says it, and why his voice was inserted into this story at all. Who benefits directly, and their institutional role. President Bola Tinubu benefits from a high-profile counterterrorism win without direct exposure to scrutiny of the timeline discrepancy. The announcement was made by the military. If questions arise, the military answers. If the win is celebrated, the administration claims it. NSA Nuhu Ribadu benefits because a confirmed ISIS kill, especially one that preceded a Trump administration announcement, positioned him as Nigeria's most effective intelligence broker, a profile that matters in 2027. The Nigerian Army's Theater Command benefits institutionally from the budget and equipment justification that a high-profile kill provides. The 2025 security allocation becomes harder to challenge in the National Assembly when it follows a commander-level neutralization. No specific contract or procurement line has been publicly linked to the Al-Minuki operation, but the pattern in Nigerian security sector budgeting is that verified operational success creates fiscal cover for the entire security apparatus, not just the specific operation. Within the APC, this announcement has reportedly strengthened the hand of the northern APC bloc, which has been under pressure over the economic conditions in the northwest and northeast. A military victory narrative partially displaces the economic failure narrative that Labour Party and PDP have been running. PDP's response has been noticeably muted because any aggressive questioning of a counter-terrorism claim risks being portrayed as sympathy for ISIS. This is the strategic trap that the announcement timing creates for the opposition. Labour Party, whose 2027 strategy depends heavily on urban youth, has limited traction on military affairs. This story moves their base slightly, but it is not a story they can win on. The presidential election is now within a 24-month window. Incumbency requires a security narrative, not just economic policy. The Tinubu administration has been vulnerable on inflation and foreign exchange. A string of verified counter-terrorism announcements timed across the next 18 months builds a commander-in-chief frame that is difficult for any opposition candidate to displace. The key electoral arithmetic is if Tinubu can hold the northeast and northwest vote on a security narrative, reducing the margin that Labour Party or PDP can gain from economic grievance, he does not need to win those regions outright. He only needs to suppress the opposition turnout. AFRICOM, the U.S. military command, has not, as of this analysis, issued a statement that directly credits Nigerian forces as the primary actor in Al-Minuki's death. That silence is data. In counterterrorism diplomacy, credit that is not given is credit that is being withheld, pending either negotiation or independent verification. The Multinational Joint Task Force, MJNTF, the Lake Chad Basin Coalition includes Nigeria, Chad, Niger, Cameroon, and Benin. Any operation in that basin would ordinarily involve MJNTF coordination. The fact that no joint statement has been issued raises the question of whether this was a unilateral Nigerian operation, an intelligence handoff, or a political repackaging of a shared coalition outcome. Gumi's public reaction to Al-Minuki's death is not casual commentary. He is the only Islamic figure in Nigeria who has held documented, publicly acknowledged dialogue with armed groups that the state designates as terrorists. His reaction, whatever its content, functions as a signal inside a network the government cannot directly address. If Gumi frames the killing as legitimate, it reduces the risk of retaliatory radicalization framing within northern Islamic communities. If he challenges it, that challenge will travel faster than any military press release. The religious obligation angle he raised is significant. The question of whether an Islamic cleric must acknowledge, condemn, or respond to the killing of a figure who claimed Islamic justification for violence is not a theological abstraction. It is a political positioning decision with real consequences for northern Nigeria's security landscape. I know what some of you are thinking, that this is just the military doing its job and politicians are giving it too much meaning. But look at what happened in 2015 when Buhari announced Boko Haram's picnical defeat before the election. The same pattern, the same timing logic, the same institutional silence from the opposition. The announcement was not wrong, but the timing was a political instrument. This is not coincidence, this is a playbook, and it has been run before. Here is the reframe you need. This is not a story about whether Al-Minuki is dead. He may well be dead. This is a story about who gets to say so, when, and what that decision costs and what it buys. Right, pause here for 1 second. If what I've just broken down is new information for you, drop a comment below and tell me, did you know any of this before today? I want to see your reaction, because in the next section, I'm going to show you something that makes everything I just said even more significant. Don't go anywhere. Earlier I asked you who has been positioned to benefit from the unregulated gap between when a military event happens and when it is publicly announced. The answer is not the Nigerian army. The army executes. The answer is the National Security Advisor's office, because that office controls the strategic communication timeline. And in Nigeria's current political architecture, whoever controls when victories are announced controls the political narrative around security, which in 2027 is worth more than any press conference. Economic impact. A confirmed high-profile ISIS kill has a measurable, if temporary, effect on foreign investor perception of northeast Nigeria, particularly in the agriculture, infrastructure, and extractive sectors, where Lake Chad Basin stability is a direct input variable. The Tinubu administration has been pursuing foreign investment aggressively: roadshows, Dangote refinery narratives, forex stabilization messaging. A counter-terrorism victory, especially one that preceded the Trump announcement, adds a security credibility layer to the investment pitch. It does not resolve structural insecurity, but it changes the tone of the conversation in London and Washington boardrooms. For ordinary Nigerians, particularly in Maiduguri, Bama, Dikwa, and the Lake Chad adjacent communities, the practical question is whether this kill disrupts ISWAP's operational command structure in any material way, or whether it is a leadership decapitation that will be absorbed by the organization within weeks, as has happened repeatedly with Boko Haram and ISWAP since 2009. Historical pattern in ISWAP. Leadership kills have not produced sustained reductions in attack frequency. The organization has demonstrated structural resilience. It is not a personalized command structure dependent on single individuals the way earlier Boko Haram was under Shekau. Al-Minuki's death may produce a period of internal ISWAP recalibration, but it is unlikely to produce a security dividend for communities in the Northeast within the 90-day window. The more serious risk is retaliatory escalation. ISWAP has previously responded to leadership kills with high-visibility attacks on civilian soft targets, specifically to prove operational continuity. In Kano and Maiduguri, the announcement will be received with cautious relief, filtered through years of similar announcements that did not reduce the violence people live with daily. In Aba and Wari, this story arrives in the context of economic pressure. The security announcement will be received as political news, not as news that changes daily life. In Jos and Makuri, where communal conflict and farmer-herder violence are the operative security realities, an ISIS kill in the Northeast will register as distant federal affairs. The disconnect between federal security narrative and local security reality is itself a political vulnerability for the administration. And this is where it gets international, because the fact that Nigeria's announcement preceded Trump's is not just a point of national pride. It is a data point that Western intelligence agencies, international investors, and the African Union are all reading in a very specific way. Here is why that matters. When the Trump administration announced the death of an ISIS West Africa leader without explicitly crediting Nigeria's military, it was not an oversight. American counterterrorism announcements are drafted with precision. The absence of credit is a deliberate omission, and it can mean one of three things. The intelligence that confirmed the kill came from American sources, not Nigerian sources. The operation involved American assets in a way that cannot be publicly acknowledged, or there is an ongoing diplomatic negotiation over attribution that has not yet been resolved. For the Tinubu administration, securing explicit American acknowledgement of Nigerian operational leadership in this kill would be a major diplomatic win. If that acknowledgement does not come, the announcement risks being positioned as Nigeria claiming credit for a US-assisted or US-confirmed operation. Nigeria's counterterrorism credibility within ECOWAS has been under pressure since the 2023 Niger coup, which removed one of Nigeria's key Lake Chad Basin partners from the coalition framework. A unilateral high-profile kill, if confirmed, rebuilds Nigeria's standing as the dominant security actor in the sub-region at a moment when that dominance is being contested by the Sahel Alliance states aligned with Russia. Nigerians in the diaspora sending remittances into the Northeast, Borno, Yobe, Adamawa, need to understand that this announcement does not change the operational security environment on the ground in the short term. If anything, the retaliatory risk window that typically follows a leadership kill means the next 60 to 90 days may see elevated attack activity. For diaspora Nigerians evaluating return or investment decisions, the strategic question is not whether Al-Minuki is dead. It is whether Nigeria's military and intelligence infrastructure has developed the institutional depth to convert individual operational wins into durable security gains. The evidence on that question remains mixed. This is not the first time a government has used a counterterrorism announcement to recalibrate its domestic political position while managing an international attribution dispute. In 2011, when Pakistan's government was effectively bypassed by the US Navy SEAL operation that killed Osama bin Laden, the Pakistani military faced an existential credibility question domestically.
Nigeria is in the opposite position. It is asserting primacy, but asserting it and having it internationally recognized are two different things. Pakistan never recovered the full attribution. Nigeria is still fighting for it.
The strongest argument for the administration's position is this. Counter-terrorism operations involve classified intelligence, interagency coordination, and diplomatic sensitivities that make real-time, fully transparent communication genuinely dangerous. Announcing a kill before the intelligence is fully verified risks alerting remaining operatives and triggering countermeasures. The 2024 announcement may have been operationally premature, and the 2026 confirmation may represent the point at which the intelligence was solid enough to withstand international scrutiny. That argument is not frivolous. It reflects how serious counterterrorism communication works in mature democracies. If the 2026 announcement is the verified confirmation of a 2024 operational event, the Nigerian military has an obligation to explain the gap, not to protect the intelligence source, but to maintain public trust in military communications. The Buhari-era pattern of unverified victory claims has produced a credibility deficit that makes every subsequent claim harder to evaluate. Transparency about why there was a gap, even in general terms, is not a security risk. It is a credibility investment that the military has so far not made. Additionally, if Nigeria's military confirmation preceded the Trump administration's announcement, then the intelligence that underpinned the 2026 announcement was already solid enough to share internationally. That means it was solid enough to explain domestically. This selective communication, international partners informed before the Nigerian public was fully briefed, is the accountability gap that demands an answer. Nigeria killed Al-Minuki before America did. This is a proof that our military is now world-class. This conflates announcement with operation. The sequence of announcements does not establish the sequence of operations or primary credit. Until AFRICOM explicitly credits Nigeria's forces, the operational attribution remains contested. Sheikh Gumi is defending Al-Minuki. Based on available reporting, Gumi has not defended Al-Minuki. He has engaged with the theological and political implications of the killing, which is his consistent role in this space. Reducing his commentary to defense is a misreading that serves a political purpose. It discredits the only civilian channel that has produced any dialogue with armed groups in the Northwest. This means Boko Haram and ISWAP are finished. ISWAP has survived the deaths of multiple senior commanders, including Abu Musab al-Banawi. It is a networked organization. A commander-level kill disrupts, it does not defeat. Anyone claiming otherwise is either uninformed or managing your expectations for political reasons. In the hook, I asked you, if Nigeria killed Al-Minuki in 2024, why did it take until February 2026 to say it again, and who decided when the world would be told? The answer, based on everything we have walked through, is this. The decision was made at the intersection of military intelligence readiness, diplomatic negotiation with American partners, and domestic political timing. All three factors had to align. They aligned in February 2026, which is 18 months before a presidential election. Whether you are in the North or the South, whether you voted for this government or opposed it, here is what every Nigerian needs to understand. When your government controls not just what happens, but when the country is told it happened, the gap between those two moments is where your political power as a citizen lives or dies. Which brings us to the final and most important question. What happens next, and what are the signals that will tell you whether this announcement is the beginning of genuine strategic progress or the opening move of a 2027 campaign that has nothing to do with your security? The Tinubu administration will seek explicit AFRICOM or U.S. State Department acknowledgement of Nigeria's role in the Al-Minuki operation through diplomatic channels first, then potentially through a joint statement or bilateral visit. If that acknowledgement comes, it will be amplified domestically as validation. If it does not come, the administration will pivot to other counter-terrorism announcements to maintain the security narrative. ISWAP will undergo an internal command consolidation period. Based on historical pattern following leadership kills, including after the deaths of Shekau and al-Banawi's various field commanders, the organization typically responds with a high-visibility attack within 60 to 90 days to demonstrate continuity. The Northeast, and specifically civilian infrastructure targets, are the highest probability targets set. Sheikh Gumi will continue to navigate the space between government-acknowledged interlocutor and independent Islamic authority. His commentary on Al-Minuki's death positions him as relevant to both the government's counter-terrorism narrative and the community's need for Islamic framing of violent events. Watch whether the government formally distances itself from him or continues to use him as an informal channel. That choice will signal the administration's confidence in its own northern political position ahead of 2027. Whether AFRICOM issues any statement explicitly crediting Nigerian forces or remains silent. Whether there is a retaliatory ISWAP attack in the Northeast and how the government communicates it. Whether the 2026 security budget allocation passes the National Assembly without significant opposition challenge, which would confirm that the political cover function of this announcement worked. Whether Gumi makes any further public statements on the subject, and whether he is then invited to any official government engagement. ISWAP executes a high-visibility retaliatory attack that kills significant numbers of civilians, demonstrating operational continuity and undermining the government's "we have broken their command structure" narrative. The government is then in the position of having to explain both the attack and the gap between the 2024 and 2026 announcements simultaneously. Public confidence in counter-terrorism management collapses ahead of a budget cycle and an election. Probability: moderate, based on ISWAP's documented post-kill behavior pattern. The Al-Minuki kill genuinely disrupts ISWAP's coordination capacity for 6 to 12 months, and AFRICOM issues a joint statement crediting Nigeria. The government uses the political space created to accelerate civilian recovery and livelihood programming in the Northeast, which addresses the recruitment conditions ISWAP exploits. Probability: low to moderate, contingent on the government executing a civilian dimension to its security strategy that has not yet been demonstrated at scale. The administration has now established a counter-terrorism success frame. If it can attach 2 or 3 more verifiable security wins between now and Q3 2026, it enters the election season with a commander-in-chief incumbency advantage that is extremely difficult for any opposition candidate to displace. The opposition's only viable counter is to pivot entirely to economic grievance and to make the argument that security announcements have been managed as political instruments rather than as genuine public information. The evidence is in this story. Demand that the National Assembly's Defense Committee holds a public briefing, even a partially declassified one, on the timeline discrepancy between the 2024 and 2026 announcements. Track Northeast attack frequency data from independent security monitoring organizations, not government releases, for the next 90 days. Hold the media accountable. Any outlet that reports this announcement without asking about the 2024 precedent is not doing journalism, it is doing public relations for the security establishment. I asked you at the start of this video, if Nigeria's military declared Al-Minuki dead in 2024, why the second announcement in February 2026, and why on a Friday and days before Washington said the same thing? The facts taken together point in one direction. This announcement is simultaneously a genuine counter-terrorism milestone and a carefully timed political instrument. Both things can be true, and in Nigerian politics, they almost always are. Al-Minuki may be dead. That matters. The Northeast has suffered enough. Any genuine disruption to ISWAP's command structure is a real benefit for real people in real communities. But the gap between when something happens and when Nigerians are told it happened, that gap is not a military secret. That gap is a governance choice, and governance choices belong to citizens to interrogate, not just accept. What we do not know is whether AFRICOM will issue a statement that fully corroborates Nigeria's operational account, and if it does not, what that silence means. When that becomes clear, we will be back with a follow-up. I want to hear from you, especially if you think I have missed something, overstated something, or gotten something wrong. That conversation matters more than agreement. If this analysis gave you something the evening news couldn't, share it with one Nigerian who needs to understand what is really happening in this country. Like this video, subscribe to Ninja Insider Report, and turn on notifications so you never miss a story. I will see you in the next one, and trust me, what we are covering next is one you don't want to miss.